10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
And good morning. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be here with you. Thankful that you're here with us on this Wednesday, November the 26th, 2025. Yes, we're less than a month away from Christmas, if you're wondering about that. And I know a lot of you are, because a lot of us have to look at the date and go, wait a minute, look how close we are to Christmas. I can't believe how fast time is flying. Do I have all my shopping done? Yeah, there's a lot of pressure this time of year for a lot of people. And the important thing is to try and take the pressure down as much as possible and not let it affect you negatively, but somehow find a way to enjoy what the season can be. It is supposed to be. The idea of Christmas to ponder upon the things that are most precious in life, spend time with family. And I would think if you are a Christian, to celebrate the birth of Christ, even though, as we've said on previous shows, many of you have alluded to, it's not really the birth of Christ historically on December 25th. However, that's the day that it's celebrated. And many cultures, including non-Christians, have embraced Christmas and celebrate it, and it is a positive thing for most people regardless, and it's a time to spend time with family, cherish those things that are most important in our lives, and celebrate the gifts that we have, and maybe spread some gifts to other people, things that people stand in need of. It's a time we think of other people. There's so much that you could unpack for that time of year, but it's hard when you're working full-time and full-time responsibilities everywhere else to just kind of slow things down and get your mind wrapped around it. No pun intended. Presents wrapping, get it? Anyways. But yeah, it can cause a lot of stress for a lot of people. Anyways, we're getting closer. It's less than a month away. And today we got a great show planned for you, even though it's shorter. We have a great show as usual. Some local headlines, some deep diving, some weather, a little bit of follow-up from yesterday's show. Yada, yada. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM, CKLU.ca on the internet. We're also streaming live at Facebook.com/Sudbury News, YouTube.com/Sudbury News. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the channel and the page. And we'll be found immediately following the show on demand on those two platforms, along with X.com/Sudbury News, Sudbury.news, which is our news aggregator. And make sure to comment. We'll do our best to get your comments up on the screen for those watching, read for those listening. And let's just dive right into it. Start off with a little bit of weather, and then we'll be back with news headlines, a follow-up from yesterday, a deep dive, and more right after this. And Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently it's 2 degrees out there. There is light rain. Today, rain mixed with snow early in the morning. Fog patches dissipating this afternoon. Wind will be moderate at 20 kilometers per hour from the southeast. And then tonight, flurries, rain showers early in the evening, snowfall amount 5 centimeters. Yay! Rain showers early in the evening, but then snowfall amount 5 centimeters. Hey, I didn't make this stuff up. I'm reading it word for word from Environment Canada. Wind, same thing, 20 kilometers per hour. Low of -5, wind chill -10 overnight. So starting to get colder. And then Thursday, periods of snow, 2 to 4 centimeters. This is looking different than what we had yesterday's forecast. Anyways, it is what it is. High of -3 tomorrow with near -12 with the wind chill. It'll be overnight. Tomorrow night, cloudy with a 60% chance of flurries. I guess winter's got to arrive sometime. And then Friday, 40% chance of flurries. High of -5, -6 and cloudy on Saturday. 60% chance of flurries. High of -5 on Sunday. -6, mix of sun and cloud on Monday. Tuesday, cloudy -6. So we're getting into the mid single digits of minus temperatures with a mixed bag concerning precipitation here and there. That's your Sudbury weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. Back with news headlines, your comments, and more right after this. All right, and here we are. Not sure why I can't hear the sound when I'm playing it on the iPad, so I'm not sure. But anyways, it is what it is. Technical stuff, who cares? We just keep moving on. Good morning from Niagara. That's Betty. And good morning to friends. And Nana, hello. Blessings, everyone. Heart emoji, exclamation point. Betty says, good morning, Nat. I missed you yesterday. Oh, there you go. Yes. Blessings, everyone. That's Denise. Judy, good morning to you. Hazel, good morning, prayer emoji. Much needed, much appreciated. And Marianne, liking and sharing from Barry. Good morning, everyone. And Belinda, good morning. Be kind. Be the kind of person who values people, not positions. Real respect is never about status. What I learned yesterday on the show is some civil servants are not so civil. We'll have some follow-up from yesterday's show, including that in a few moments. Thanks for that, Belinda. And Denise, yes, Santa celebrated globally for sure. He's adopted into all cultures, thanks to Coca-Cola. Larry, good morning, everybody. Good morning to you as well. And we have Roger on this morning. Good conversation last night, Roger, with yourself and your wife. Thank you so much for that. So great to connect with all of you. And with that, we're planning on, I know Nana messaged me and said, hey, are we ever going to have that get-together thing? We said, yeah, let's look at possibly spring. The reason is weather. If we wanted to have a get-together, a meet and greet, let's say a potluck or something, just with everybody who is associated with the show and friends, just invite out and meet everybody face to face and have a face to face gathering of some kind. We'll plan for one in the spring. That way, it doesn't have to be canceled if there's a snowstorm or something like that. Okay, just what did you say here, Marianne? You said just thinking to done your Christmas stuff. Okay. And good morning to Betty. Yes. And Bob, good morning to you. Hello, everyone. Good day. Northern Hillbilly, good morning, people. Larry, I'm not a big fan of Christmas. Just do it for my grandkids. A lot of us are like that. And you never know. Every once in a while you go, yeah, I don't mind this thing. It's pretty cool, like here and there, seeing the grandkids happy and seeing the family celebrating it. Sometimes even if we're bah humbug, there's other silver linings to it, right? Monique, good morning. Sudbury, smiley emoji. Larry says, it seems there's a pattern there. Did it for my kids. Now I'm doing it for the grandkids. God love them. That's right. We do it for the family. And it's about other people, right? That's what the whole holidays are for. It can be the last time it can be a hard time for some. Yes, exactly. And that's why I started the show the way that I did. It's not easy for everybody. It's not easy for a lot of people. But we can get through it. We will get through it somehow. Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some snow. And lots of hugs. Okay, so good morning, Maurice. Good morning to you. Yeah, the F word, the flurries, that's for sure. That's Marianne. The F word is flurries, just so anybody who isn't familiar on the show. Christmas is a setup for a lot of depression, suicide. Denise says, I stopped celebrating it when people were killing themselves because they couldn't afford gifts for the kids and they couldn't survive for the next January, February, March. Maybe starting to get on their feet, pays no good for the family. One day of celebration for months of suffering. It's not worth it. So you're saying basically the credit card bills come in after Christmas, and that's more depressing than Christmas itself for a lot of people, right? I know it's an interesting thing, and it's not getting any easier, as we'll see today. Christmas is hard for the vulnerable, for sure, Bob, 100%. Yes, light rain today. Only have a sore ankle, not sure, sore neck or a shoulder, so we ain't getting a storm. Oh, so your body tells you when the weather's going to change. I know a lot of people that have arthritis definitely know when the weather's going to be raining or snowing. A lot of humidity. Monique, Grand Rising, good morning to you. Honestly, December 25th, actually a pagan holiday. Yes, it is the celebration of the sun, and it seemed to be a great way to incorporate Christianity, the Son of God, celebrating the sun, the pagan holiday, the first day where the days start getting longer after the winter solstice, right? And good morning to you, Kaylee. Thanks for being on. Great conversation last night. And Liette, good morning from Collingwood. Much appreciated. Pat as well. Good morning, folks. Thanks for being on. We're just going to get on here, start looking at our stories of the day. Two of them, I guess. One of them is to go over the story that was shared by Northern Ontario Business recently, and that was the reason for our conversation last night. Haley and Roger. And we talked about the city and permits and bylaw officers and how the city handles all that stuff. Anyways, there was an article in Northern Ontario Business, which is owned by Village Media, which also owns Sudbury.com. And basically, it's pretty long. So I said, hey, ChatGPT. Everyone hates it or loves it. I said, can you summarize this into 2 paragraphs for me? So I do give a disclaimer that this is ChatGPT's summarization of the actual article from Northern Ontario Business. Real estate lawyers and City of Greater Sudbury officials say unresolved building permits are creating major delays in property transactions, affecting roughly 1/3 of real estate deals, which is quite a bit, 33.333 repeating percent of all transactions it's delaying in the city. Many homeowners either open permits and never close them or complete work without obtaining permits in the first place, leading to last minute complications when properties are sold. The city currently holds more than 17,300 open permits, most issued before 2022, more than 3 years ago, making it difficult to quickly resolve issues when buyers are ready to close. The problem has also triggered panic among sellers and buyers, with lawyers noting that even if deals rarely fall apart, the delays are costly and stressful. The situation was worsened because title insurance companies have restricted coverage in Greater Sudbury after seeing unusually high claim rates for permit-related issues. Nearly 98% locally compared to about 80% nationally for unrelated matters, like tax arrears. Some insurers now cap coverage at $10,000 or exclude it entirely, reducing safety nets that residents previously relied on. City councilors and stakeholders discussed potential solutions, including conditionally closing decades-old permits. Decades-old permits? Well, yeah. And improving communication with homeowners. But city staff warned of liability concerns. A report outlining options and impacts is expected at a future committee meeting as the city works to address what some officials describe as an overwhelming and ongoing challenge. So, building permits in the city of Greater Sudbury, we have 17,300 that were opened most before 2022, and some are decades old, and it's causing problems, right? So we have high claim rates, 98% locally compared to 80% of the national average. So almost 100%. That's terrible. So anyways, it is what it is. I thought I'd just get that out there. Thank you, ChatGPT, for summarizing that for me. It's so this is an example of using it in a positive way to get a concise message across in a short period of time. And it summarized it very well. So I'd like to thank the AI technology for that. Now, yesterday's was an interesting show. We had Tom Price and Bob Johnston on. And towards the end of the show, the iPad began to freeze, and then it just went dark. It just went black. And it only happened one other time, and it's interesting that it was also a discussion about the city and holding the city accountable when the iPad crashed. Coincidence? I don't know. Could be. I'm just saying I don't know if it's a coincidence or it's not. The only two times my iPad crashed towards the end of the show, both times, right? So was when we were really digging into the city and talking about all kinds of things that the city, either incompetence or questioning if it is incompetence or just, overlooking things, trying to hold the city accountable. Usually that's what journalists do. They don't usually, historically, just work with the city and become a propaganda arm of it. But that happens, and it's happened locally. There's many stories where you can tell it's just whatever the city wants the reporter to say, they just print, right? And it's good for the reporter because they can get perks because city people in power in the city can do favors for those journalists that other people possibly couldn't do for them, right? So it gives them, there's some rewards for doing that. It's not easy when you try to hold people accountable. You get a lot of flack for that. Now, Natalie Labby messaged me immediately following the show, very upset, and said a few things to set the record straight on some of the things that were said on the show. One of them was that we were saying that they could use the power in Energy Court to make some warmth for the people experiencing homelessness there. And we said that the city owns that's Greater Sudbury Utilities, but it's not. It's a Toronto firm that owns that particular power generation there. So the city doesn't have the ability to do that there. I guess the city could do other things. They could work with that energy company, hydro company, to do that. So, but just wanted to set the record straight. They don't own the infrastructure of Energy Court. It's another hydro company. She also mentioned that you don't need to have background in hydro per se or anything to do with anything to be on a board. They have a matrix that they use to hire board members. And so it was said that we have 3 city councillors on Sudbury Hydro board, but they don't have any background in hydro. So I guess, you could have background in social work. You can have a background in HR, which is all I was able to find on the counselors that are on the board. And maybe they can lend those skills or that experience to helping, hydro. And I guess it's diversity on the board, right? Not everyone has to have industry experience, which is sad in my judgment, in my opinion. Again, we talked about how the private sector wouldn't be like that. They'd want people who actually had experience that could really take that business to the next level. And you don't want people that don't have any experience in that industry on the board. You want people who actually have real world knowledge, who are going to affect the bottom line positively. You wouldn't put someone who doesn't know how to drive a plane, fly a plane in the cockpit, so to speak. So it is what it is. That's our society today. The country is run by ministers who don't have any experience. So the Minister of Education doesn't have an educational background. The Minister of Public Safety doesn't come from, it wasn't a former police officer or doesn't come from that industry. It just is what it is. Now, they do have deputy ministers, as Tom pointed out, that do have the background. They do have the bureaucracy around them that can inform them. However, I do think it's kind of sad that the people that are in the top positions don't have any real world experience in the very things that they're over and making decisions about. Another thing that was talked about were the most drug overdoses happen at home and don't happen on the streets. And Bob took exception to that and said, well, how do they get this information? The story is from the Sudbury Star. Most drug overdose deaths in Sudbury happen at home, Top Doc says. So the interim leader of Sudbury Health Unit says that's the way that it is. Now, there's no way to get accurate information because they're not logging all the deaths from on the streets. And so we're not exactly sure how we're getting this information. He says, of the 503 drug-related overdoses that took place from 2022 to 2025. Now, just let that sink in for a second. Of the 503 drug-related overdoses that took place between 2022 and 2025. So that means we've had 503 drug overdoses in 3 years. That in and of itself should be super alarming. Only 23.7% died in a location other than a private home. The vast majority of people, 76.3%, overdosed in a residence. About 80% of people were housed, and only 10.7% were considered homeless. He said another 9% of people were somewhere in between housed and homeless. That's an interesting thing to say. 9% of people were in between somewhere between housed and homeless. I'd like to know how you get to that category, or how do you define that? That's interesting. is just an interesting way of saying it. You're between housed and homeless. Either you're housed or you're homeless. As far as I know, I don't know how you can be in between. Were they walking home? So they were in between being homeless and being home and they died? I don't know. The article doesn't answer that for us. Okay, so how are we getting this information? I'm going to dig deeper into this. I didn't have much time, so I just thought I'd follow up with the actual article and some information on that. But what are the reasons for this? Why is our country why do we experience this? We don't know. Another thing Natalie said, it's not the city's responsibility, homelessness, that's the province. It's getting on city council and the city for all these things is it's not this city's responsibility for our homeless. It's a health thing, and that's the province, right? So she wanted to clarify that. So don't get so mad about the city when it's a provincial thing. Okay, so Wake Up Canada, talking a little bit about recent comments from Mark Carney saying, who cares, right? Who cares if he's talked to Donald Trump recently or not? Who cares? Just kind of holding him accountable a little bit on that. And then we'll be back right after that, as soon as I find the volume. There you go.
Straight through Canada's carefully crafted illusion. Welcome to Wake Up Canada News. I'm Brad Wilder. This next article was researched and written by one of our Wake Up Canada News contributing reporters. We need to start this one off with J.D. Vance because he just dropped a political truth bomb that blasted straight through Canada's carefully crafted illusion. And yes, he called out Liberals, CBC, and woke immigration insanity for dragging this country into decline. And the worst part, he didn't even say anything shocking. He just said what every Canadian quietly knows, but is too exhausted to repeat anymore. Now here's the exact quote that set this whole country on fire. No nation has leaned harder into diversity as our strength. We don't need a melting pot. We have a salad bowl, immigration insanity in Canada. It has the highest foreign-born share in the G7, and its living standards have stagnated. And with all due respect to my Canadian friends, your problems have nothing to do with Donald Trump. The fault lies with your leadership, elected by you. It's painful because it's true. It's uncomfortable because, well, it's accurate. It's infuriating because foreigners can see our collapse more clearly than our own leaders. But if that didn't make your blood boil, I'm guaranteeing this will. Because this brings us right into the most embarrassing, disrespectful, insulting political moment of the year. The moment your Prime Minister dismissed the economic future of Canada with 2 words. Who cares? So let's break it down how outrageous this actually is. A reporter asks him a simple question. It's a crucial question. Since the U.S. called off trade talks with Canada, has Mr. Trump returned your calls or accepted your apology? And instantly, he freezes. This is the same guy who bragged he texts Donald Trump all the time. The same guy who said he could unlock $1 trillion of investment. The same guy who called himself the one person who could manage Trump. And suddenly, he can't answer. He's dodging, fumbling, sweating. He mutters, he accepted the apology when I spoke to him. We've had discussions. I've been busy. Yeah, busy. The man is too busy to deal with, well, number one, our trading partner, the country that buys 76% of our exports, the relationship that supports over 600,000 Canadian jobs, the economic lifeline of millions of families. Too busy for that, buddy? And then the jaw dropper, the insult, the moment every Canadian should remember until the next election. Who cares? Who cares? Oh, who cares? You should care. Every single Canadian should care. Because that one arrogant sentence says everything we need to know about this government. Your job? Who cares? Your industry? Who cares? Your bills, your future, your kids' future? Who cares? The auto sector cares, manufacturing cares, farmers care, small businesses care, border towns care, entire economies care. Every Canadian paying rent, buying groceries, or trying to survive this disaster of an economy cares. But the man in charge, the man whose actions blew up our trade talks, the man who promised he could manage Trump, he shrugs off the collapse in negotiations, the collapse that threatens 600,000 jobs and spits out, who cares?
Right? But we find our mainstream media doesn't really... Oh, that David Cochrane guy on CBC, he's too much, man. Like, he might as well be the spokesperson for the Prime Minister. Whenever anyone tries to critique the Prime Minister, he's got every excuse in the book. He's like, well, no, don't you think the Prime Minister was trying to get this apart? He's like speaking for him. He's finding excuses for him instead of being a journalist. It's so apparent. If you don't see that, just watch David Cochrane next time when something critical is said about the ruling government that we have, and just watch how he himself becomes one of their party all of a sudden and tries to defend. He comes up with all kinds of ways to make them in a better light instead of actually being critical as he should be, right?
To introduce my husband, the Prime Minister, who will
So
make
one of the
Canada strong.
reasons for this is, remember back when Mark Carney was first elected and his wife went up and said the speech and introduced him to the audience, and she said something really interesting, and I think that's what's ending up happening in our country. I think he's doing what he's supposed to be doing here in the country, and that's making Canada great and Canada poor. Listen to what she says. It's really interesting.
Without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce my husband, the Prime Minister who will make Canada strong. And Canada for! Minister who will make Canada strong. And Canada for! Minister who will make Canada strong. And Canada for!
Wait a second, did Mark Carney's wife really say make Canada poor?
Minister who will make Canada strong. And Canada for!
That's an oxymoron, don't you think? Making it strong and poor?
Right? So I think that's just, it's been the plan all along. And for whatever reason, right? I know there's a lot of evidence that we're heading into a global world and borders need to be taken down. Economies need to be suppressed in order to bring in the new economy. And I think that's what they're doing. I think we're going along with that as a city. We're going to become the most in debt city in Ontario after we borrow all the money that we're going to be borrowing. So we're just following lockstep with the country. The most in debt we've ever been, just record number of debt, and we're going to have to pay this back with interest. We're going to be bankrupt, as the Prime Minister's budgetary officer said. We're going off a cliff, and if something doesn't change, we're done. And that's what's happening. So make Canada strong and Canada poor. Strong because we're going to be a part of a globalist alliance, but poor because that's the agenda of the globalists. Everyone's poor except for them, right? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy, if you've ever heard of that. All right, so that's all the time we got for the show today. We'll be back same time, same place, on the same platforms tomorrow, God willing. Remember to stay aware, like, share, take care, and stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Ciao for now.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.